Hello everyone, welcome to the CyberRanges platform. In this instructional video, I'll be explaining the dashboard, the library, playlists, and scenarios. By default, when you log on to the CyberRanges platform, it'll open the dashboard, which you can see right over here, which will show you statistics including a list of scenarios, and in this case, the newly released scenarios. It'll also display the total number of scenarios available on the platform, the total virtual machines running, and the hours that have been spent playing scenarios on the platform as a whole. It'll also display the total number of teams that is currently on the CyberRanges platform. In addition to that, as I mentioned, you also have your new releases section, which will essentially list out the list of all the new scenarios that have been released on the CyberRanges platform, which you can immediately initiate directly from here. So the dashboard is really the landing page that will give you an idea of the newest releases as well as statistics pertinent to the CyberRanges platform. You then have the library. The library is pretty much the most important section of the CyberRanges platform, in that it is a collection of all scenarios on the CyberRanges platform, and they have been sorted in various ways, and it actually allows you to sort through and look for the scenarios that are pertinent to your skill set or the skills that you'd like to attain. For example, if you have previously initiated a scenario, it'll actually be displayed under recently played. Furthermore, if you had initiated a scenario and you haven't terminated it, it'll actually display it right over here as in progress, and you'll be able to jump straight or right back into it. You also have other sections like new releases, which you've already seen on the dashboard. You also have your top rated section, which sorts all the scenarios on the CyberRanges platform based on their rating. You then have the most popular scenario section, which will again sort all the scenarios on the CyberRanges platform based on popularity. And furthermore, or in addition to that, you also have other categories or other sections that have been set up to actually allow you to go through specific learning paths or specific job roles based on the skill that you're trying to acquire. A good example of this is mobile, or for example, the system security hardening section, which will essentially give you a list of scenarios that will take you through that path and will give you the skills necessary to harden both Linux and Windows systems. So you can go through all the sections here that again have been sorted based on categories like popularity and of course rating. In addition to that, they've also been sorted based on the actual learning path right over here. So for example, we have network traffic analysis, CTFs, web challenges, etc., etc. One of the great features of the library section of the CyberRanges platform is that it provides you with a robust search engine as well as really great filters that allow you to sort the scenarios displayed within the library based on various variables like difficulty, the type, and furthermore, you can also sort through the scenarios you want displayed based on the learning path or the category, if you will. For example, if I only wanted to view the web-based scenarios, I can click on web and I can scroll down and click on apply, and that'll display all the web-based scenarios. So for example, if I wanted to learn how to perform XML external entity injection, I would be able to find that here. So that is how to sort through the various categories really quickly. Now, as I said, you can also search for individual scenarios or topics that you are interested in. For example, if I wanted to search for a scenario pertinent to the Eternal Blue exploit, I can launch a search and immediately I'll be provided with the scenarios pertinent to the search term that I had specified. So as you can see, I've found the scenario that I want to run. I can click on more info and I can go ahead and start it, and I can get started with that particular scenario. As I said, I can also combine my filters with categories. So for example, if I wanted intermediate difficulty web challenges, I could also do that. So I can say intermediate web challenges, and this will be displayed right over here. So you have the ability to sort through the scenarios that you want based on categories as well as the difficulty. And in addition to that, you also have the ability to search for specific scenarios. Now let's take a closer look at scenarios. and I will just search for the eternal blue scenario right over here, and I can click on a scenario. Whenever you open up a scenario, you'll be provided with a brief description as well as tags pertinent to what this scenario is about. In this case, you can see that this is really about SMB, exploitation, and eternal blue. You also have a description of the scenario. So again, it will give you a basic description of the scenario, the objectives, the prerequisites, the author, and you have the ability to add a comment based on feedback or questions that you might have. And in that way, you can engage with the community at whole. You also have the various modes, which we'll be exploring in a later video. In this case, you can see this is a single player scenario, and it is also in the form of a challenge, which means that this particular scenario has a challenge associated to it. You then have the difficulty and the estimated duration of completion. So that is really the actual front page of a scenario. You have the ability to share the scenario. You also have the ability to add the actual scenario into your favorites. And you have the ability to add this scenario to a specific playlist. So you can create your own playlist if you want. We'll actually touch upon playlists in a few seconds. So if I wanted to start this scenario, I can just click on Start and Proceed. And that is going to initialize the scenario. Now on the initialization page, you'll be provided with guidelines pertinent to this particular scenario. You also have rules, which will provide you with a code of ethics, technical details, instructions on how to access the lab, as well as credentials for the target system or the attacker system if an attacker system has been configured. If this is a cyber challenge scenario, you'll also have a leaderboard that will essentially give you a list of users on the CyberRangers platform with the highest score who have actually gone through this particular scenario successfully. So I'm just going to wait for this scenario to initialize. Once the scenario is initialized, I can click on Start, and I'll give that a couple of seconds. After I've started the scenario, you will be redirected to the scenario page where you'll be provided with the mission, the rules, the leaderboard as you were provided with it during the scenario initialization. If this is a cyber challenge scenario, you'll also have a set of questions associated with this scenario that again will dictate your score. So for example, in this case, we actually need to retrieve 2 flags. After submitting the flags, we will be provided with points that will tie into our final score. If you click on servers, this is where you get access to all the systems involved in this scenario. And in this case, you can see that we have access, or we can actually utilize this CentOS system as our base of attack, or the system that we can use to attack the 2 other Windows systems that we are going to be exploiting. And you're also provided with their IP addresses right over here. Now, in order to interact with these systems, you need to connect to the CyberRangers VPN, which I've already covered in previous videos. You can do so via the VPN certificate. Alternatively, you can also utilize the CyberRangers VPN client. So if I click on Connect here, we'll give this a couple of seconds. There we are. We're now connected. And if we click on the status bar here, that should be updated in a couple of seconds. There we are. So we're now connected to the CyberRangers VPN, and we can now start accessing these target systems, or actually begin the exploitation process. You're also provided in certain scenarios with web shell access. And in this case, we can access the CentOS system via a web shell. So I'm just going to open that up. And this is utilizing WebSSH2. And that'll provide you with access with a web shell on the CentOS system so that you can begin or initiate your attacks on the 2 Windows systems. You can also, again, target the systems, utilizing or via your own penetration testing distribution, given the fact that you're already connected to the CyberRangers VPN. As I said, you also have access to your score based on the questions that you've answered, and in this case, the flags that you've submitted. And the score is sorted based on the overall score, the category score, and the score graph. Once you're done with a scenario, you can exit, and you have the ability to exit to the dashboard where the scenario will be left running Alternatively, if you're done with it completely, you can exit and terminate. There we are. So we've exited from that scenario, and that is the library and scenarios. We also have an additional section which is equally as important, and that is the playlists section or the playlists page. Playlists are essentially a grouping or collection of scenarios which have been put together according to a certain criterion or category. So for example, for the purpose of a course, a specialization, a learning path, etc. Playlists can either be public or private. Public playlists are visible to anyone utilizing the CyberRanges platform, while the private playlists are only visible to the scenario creator. Now, as I said, if you're taking a look at individual scenarios and you find one that is important to you or that is pertinent to you, like this one, for example, here, I can add this to my own playlist. I can create a playlist here. So I'm going to create a playlist and I'm just going to call this Metasploit, right? And I can add a tag if I want. So I can say Metasploit and I can provide a description. So I can say a collection of Metasploit scenarios. And I can just type in Metasploit and hit enter because that is a tag, and hit save. If I take a look at playlists, again, I'll be able to filter through the most recent playlist that has been created right over here. And again, these are all the publicly available playlists. You can also filter through them based on other categories, like the less recent option, rating based on ascending order or descending order, and you can search for individual playlists. A good example of this would be if I was trying to learn a specific skill or if I was trying to learn more about a specific specialization. For example, if I wanted to learn more about cross-site scripting, I could type that in, and you can see that we have a playlist on cross-site scripting, which again contains a series of scenarios pertinent to that particular specialization within web application penetration testing. So this is a great way of actually finding specific scenarios that have been sorted or categorized into one playlist. And again, they're done so based on criteria like, a course, specialization, or learning path.